What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS OGs podcast right here on RotoGrinders.com. Back to talk everything Week 16. And a lot of you guys have your championship season-long matchups. We're going to look at a lot of matchups. Should be able to gain some insight there, some sit-start questions. But we will focus on the DFS aspect of things as always. We will take a look at the Saturday games. Pretty big slates out there for the 3-game Saturday slate. And then, as always, cover the main slate on Sunday. So a lot to get to here over the next hour. Let me bring in my fellow OGs, my boys, my dogs, Notorious, headChopper. Let's start with Notorious. Buddy, how'd Week 15 go? How we doing, man?
Yeah, so I ended up losing in my season-long, the Final Four, so I wasn't too excited about that. Ran into a buzzsaw. His entire lineup just went nuts. But luckily, my best week of DFS so far this season. Had a lot of Julio, and if I would have played Conley over Didi, I probably would have had a really big week. But no complaints. Finally had a nice week after a few losing ones.
Yeah, it's tough when it's just one guy. If I would have done this, and you were probably having that debate. I know I had that debate in a lot of lineups, Conley or Westbrook. So certainly feel for you on that one. Chop, how was Week 15, my man? How we doing?
Well, I lost my season-long playoff game.
Oh, now we don't even want to talk about here. End the pod. We're done.
I ran into the Lamar Jackson, McCaffrey, Julio trio this weekend.
Damn.
And I lost. And I can't help but to think that if only I wouldn't have messed up and used that number 2 pick on Alvin Kamara, if I would have used it on McCaffrey, because I faced McCaffrey here this week, and if I could have just switched those 2 guys, I would have won. So yeah, I screwed everything up draft day when I used my pick on Kamara instead of McCaffrey. But that's that. DFS was not good for me this week at all. It was boiled down to 2 things. Number 1, poor game selection. I played a lot of money in a game that had a very poor payout, and I knew it was a poor payout, but I went for it anyway. And if you can't finish in the top 5 of those top heavy things, then you're going to get screwed anyway. So that, and 55% owned Chris Carson went crazy, and I didn't fade him, but I certainly wasn't on 55% Chris Carson. And when that happens and the guy goes off for a top 3 point game like that, you're going to be in trouble. So, it happens.
Yeah, it seems like the chalk hitting a lot more this year. I mean, we always have the weeks every single year where the chalk just smashes, but it seems like more so this year. Maybe just recency bias, but is what it is. Break-even week for me. Had some good spots, some bad spots. Season long, my best team still alive, riding that McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook combo. So hoping Dalvin can play this week to get the championship locked up. So we will see. We'll update that next week. But like I said, we are here to talk DFS, a lot to get to. We're going to run through this Saturday slate, $1 million tournament over on DraftKings. So let's dive in, guys. Pretty interesting game here to start. Houston and Tampa Bay, big total game here. Interesting on the spread. Tampa Bay somehow opened as favorites at -1. This has swung all the way to Houston, -3 now. So we'll get into our betting picks for the game. But, Chop, let's go to you here. I mean, Houston, impressive last week in Tennessee. Got the job done. Tampa Bay easily beats Detroit, but probably no Mike Evans. Probably no Chris Godwin. Do we trust Bashard Perriman? Do we go to these tight ends? What do we do with this Tampa Bay offense against Houston?
Oh man, it's a tough question. I don't think it's as cut and dry as just plug and play these other guys. You really need to think about whether Tampa Bay is going to be even competitive in this game offensively. Now I know they've been good and Jameis is okay, but he could also make mistakes. And this, there could be a thing where we're watching this game and this thing ends up like 31-0 or 31-7 or something like that. So I don't think it's just as easy as plug and play all these guys. I think there's a real legitimate worry that they won't be able to move the ball very well at all. So, yeah, I think you could use the value plays on Perryman and Watson and these guys, and even O.J. Howard if you want to take that risk. But I don't think they're like plug and plays is on that side of the ball. And Houston, for the same reasons, I kind of temper my expectations. There's a path where they just don't have to press the gas pedal here. This would be the best game on the weekend DFS wise if Godwin or Evans or even one of them were playing in this game. I think this could be a real shootout. But because Tampa Bay may have a problem scoring, maybe it limits Houston's desire to score too much also. So I'm kind of worried about that. But obviously on a 3-game slate, you get Houston up here against Tampa Bay, and you can play all the guys on the Houston side.
Yeah, especially those wide receivers. We know Tampa Bay have been very good against the run. Carlos Hyde looked good last week, but against this Tampa defense, you definitely want to pass. And, Derek, that's a question in itself. We saw Kenny Stills a week late. Had a lot of Kenny Stills in the previous week, of course. Comes back, scores 2 touchdowns last week. Hopkins had a decent game. Kind of make me like some Will Fuller here against this Tampa Bay secondary. So a lot to get to here, Derek. The Tampa Bay pass catchers and the Houston pass catchers, I think, are the interesting discussion points. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm looking at this game in the context of the 3-game slate. And if you look at the other 4 defenses that are playing, they're ranked 1st, 4th, 2nd, and 8th in defensive DVOA. So this is definitely going to be the game you want to load up on. Easily has the highest total. The other ones are at 38.5 and 45. So, I'm going to be loading up on both of the passing attacks. Even if Chris Godwin ends up being out, it doesn't sound like he's going to play. I'll still play Winston. He's been good no matter who's out there, no matter who he's throwing the ball to. Don't mind Perriman. Watson's the cheaper of the 2. O.J. Howard, pretty good spot for him as well. The Texans are 29th in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs, and they're also dead last in receiving yards allowed to running backs. So definitely interesting spot for the Bucs. Houston, they can clinch the division, I believe, with the win this week, so they will probably sell out to win this game. They will have the tiebreaker over the Titans, even if they lose to them next week due to their division record, I believe. So important game for them. And the way to beat the Buccaneers is through the air. I love Deshaun Watson. You mentioned Will Fuller. I think he's a tremendous tournament play. I also like DeAndre Hopkins. So that definitely sets up better for Duke Johnson than it does for Carlos Hyde, given the fact that the Bucs are number 1 in DVOA against the run. And probably won't be playing Kenny Stills. Won't be chasing those 2 touchdowns. But everyone else in play for me in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going back to Stills. So missed out, burned me, and then I missed out. I'm not going to go back there. But one more note on Will Fuller. Tampa bottom 5 in 20-yard and 40-yard receptions allowed. And we know that's the bread and butter of his game. And against the secondary, I think he could get it done. And maybe the lower owned of all these receivers. We'll see what the ownership looks like with Kenny Stills. But interesting spot here for Houston. Let's go to the line again. Houston -3. A big total here at 50. I'm going to Texans. I'm going to go with the line change here. I just think Houston's clearly the better team. Tampa can put up points, but Houston -3 feels pretty easy here to me. Derek, what do you got?
Yeah, Texans as well, and give me the over. I think Winston, enough turnovers that he's going to be throwing the rest of the game.
Yeah, I like the over as well. I'll stick with Houston, but like that call. Chop, what do you got?
Houston all the way.
All right, easy 3-peat sweep there for the Houston Texans. Let's go to the next game. Derek, you mentioned the defenses here, and we get Buffalo and New England. A huge game here for both teams. New England, easy win in Cincinnati after a little bit of a scare there early on. And Buffalo grinded it out, got that win in Pittsburgh. But we're talking about a 37.5-point total here, Derek. So pick somebody, pick anybody out of this game. Are there viable options? Because I think a lot of people are going to go to Houston, Tampa Bay. These next 2 teams, we're going to have to find some diamonds in the rough.
It's really ugly for the Patriots. Tom Brady's thrown the ball 65 times in the last 2 games, less than 300 yards combined during that stretch. He's obviously dealing with that elbow injury, and everyone's calling him noodle arm. He just doesn't look good. Doesn't have any deep threats either. Julian Edelman's dealing with a knee injury, so it's just tough. And then you have Tre'Davious White's probably going to be following around, Sanu or Harry on the outside. So I don't really love anyone from the Patriots. If I do play somebody, I'll probably take a shot on Sony Michel. The best way to beat the Bills is on the ground. He did lead the way in snaps last week with a 42% snap share, 20 touches last week. So maybe the Pats are trying to get their running game going heading into the playoffs. Then for the Bills, Josh Allen probably doesn't have the highest ceiling in this game, but he does have at least 17 fantasy points in 12 of 14 games. Already has 9 rushing touchdowns on the season, and he's only 5,300. So don't mind him as a value play. I think he offers a pretty high floor. Singletary's fine. He's played at least 70% of the snaps in 5 straight games. But the receivers, they're tough to play here just because it's such a good secondary. John Brown's probably going to get the Gilmore treatment. Beasley, McKenzie, don't really have any faith in them. So Josh Allen on the ground or Singletary on the ground for me.
Yeah, and a note about Josh Allen, season low came in fantasy points came against this New England team, and has not played well against them over the course of his career. So generally love the upside, or love the price here with Josh Allen, but I don't know if we can play him here against New England. But a lower-owned guy compared to the Houston Tampa Bay quarterbacks. While we're on the subject of quarterbacks, a little bit of a rant here. Great performance by Drew Brees. You know, we celebrate the record. Are we going to celebrate now when Tom Brady beats Drew Brees, and then next week we'll celebrate Drew Brees again, and then Tom Brady? I mean, they're just going to go back and forth. So, Chop, what are we doing here with this touchdown record? It was great to set the record, but
I don't think we have to worry too much about Noodle Arm breaking any records.
That's true. He might not throw anymore. That's true. Brees may have it already locked up. All right, Chop, what do you got on this game? Again, low total. We got to find something out of this game. Is it defenses? I mean, where are we going here?
Hey, I mean, you guys certainly, after 15 weeks, if you're listening to this, you don't need me to tell you that the first game we covered is clearly the favorite game for big points. A game like New England and Buffalo is not a very attractive game. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you the same old stuff, but the fact is that you're on a 3-game slate. I mentioned how Chris Carson earlier as a chalk play can destroy a week. If that chalk play doesn't work out, if, you know, in an alternate universe, if he fumbles on the first drive and all of a sudden he doesn't come back into the game again or something crazy, and that 55% of the field is left behind, then I win who knows how much, you know, who knows? So you're playing at ownership percentages, especially on a 3-game slate. So, hey, if you want to get in there and mix it up and go with the Sony Michel, who probably will be lower owned, or even a James White, and maybe they have to, because, I mean, Brady is the check down king now. Get James White, N'Keal Harry. Those guys are all fine plays in my book on a 3-game slate. And on the flip side, if you want to take a chance, I know it's a tough defense New England has, but hey, you never know when – you know, I watched enough football to know that a guy gets loose on one play. John Brown gets loose for a 70-yarder on one play, and that just completely destroys a 3-game slate. So you take a chance on a John Brown or even a Cole Beasley getting 2 cheap touchdowns somehow. I mean, yeah, they don't seem like attractive plays, but play them on a 3-game slate because you're playing more than just the analytics here and the stats, man. You need to play the ownership.
Yeah, and you're playing those big plays, like you said. And the guys, when it only takes one, that's the guy you want. And, you know, I think John Brown certainly gives you that. N'Keal Harry's started to look good for this team. So you're not just going to be able to load up on Houston and Tampa Bay and be different from everybody. So I like the James White call. We'll see what happens with Edelman. I think he bounces back. Only 6,400 here. So interesting spot. But I would definitely find some options in this game, and I think that alone can make you different. The Sony Michel call, nobody's going to want to play him, but touchdown upside certainly there, especially if you're playing on a site like FanDuel. All right, let's take a look at the line. We got New England -6 here, low total here at 37.5, Chop.
Oh, man, this is a good one, but I haven't seen enough really good offense from New England lately. I'm going to take Buffalo.
I'm going to go an old man under here. I think we're going to see a similar game to Buffalo and Pittsburgh where points are going to be at a premium. Neither offense really going to be able to get much going here. So I will go under even on this low number at 37.5. Derek.
Yep, old man under. These past defenses are just so good. I'll take the under.
All right, let's go to the other game on the slate. I think this one will be a little bit more fantasy-friendly than the Buffalo-New England game, obviously. We have Rams and 49ers. The Niners broke my heart last week, losing that game to the Falcons, had them in a Survivor League. Cost me $4,600 on that Julio Jones touchdown. So it happens. We're not here to talk about our bad beats, but damn you, 49ers. But back at home against the Rams here. Rams took one on the chin, Chop, against your Cowboys. So how do they respond here? A big game for playoff positioning here for the Niners, trying to get back into those top 2. So, Derek, we'll go to you on this game first. Rams-Niners should be interesting to close out Saturday night.
Yeah, so some key injuries to watch for the 49ers. Kwan Williams, Richard Sherman, and the best name in football, Jaquiski Tart, all missed last week's game. And then we saw Julio Jones, kind of go off against a secondary that was very shorthanded. So keep an eye on those 3 injuries. It would definitely be good news for Jared Goff and his receivers. Robert Woods runs, a lot of his routes on the outside. Cooper Kupp back to a full-time role last week after playing 27% of the snaps in Week 14, back up to 92% last week. So I think he's an interesting GPP play. A lot of people will just assume that he's been phased out of the offense. We obviously got to talk about Tyler Higbee, 100 yards in 3 straight games. So even if Everett's back, I don't think they're going to go back to him as their primary tight end. I think Higbee's interesting, but a tough matchup for the whole team for sure. They have an implied total less than 20 points. Gurley's one of those guys that, he's played in 96% of the snaps last week, even in the blowout. I don't know what he was doing out there late in the game, but looks like they're going to ride him for the rest of the season. So in a 3-game slate, I do think he's viable. And then for the Niners, an important game. They're fighting for the division lead. They're tied with the Seahawks right now. Jimmy G is only 5,500 at home. Don't hate him, but don't love him. Don't really know who to pair him with is the problem. Emmanuel Sanders has only ran 30% of his routes in the slot this season, so he might see more Ramsey than most people expect. Bourne kind of runs a lot of routes in the slot as well. So I think I would probably just go with George Kittle in the passing game. And then Mostert, we saw what Zeke and Pollard were able to do to the Rams last week. So I'm definitely interested in him at 6,100.
Yeah, Kittle, the guy you pair Garoppolo with for sure. I know you talked about him there. Mostert's the guy. Don't look at last week. Tevin Coleman started. That was the Atlanta revenge. Let's get him a touchdown against his former team. That's about all that was. And Breida lost, I believe, 2 fumbles. So Mostert just a lockdown on this job, it seems like. He's the most expensive, but to me, he's the guy you want here. Chop, wrap us up here for Saturday, Rams and Niners.
Yeah, this is a game where if everybody wants to put all their ownership on the Tampa Bay-Houston game, this is the perfect game to really diversify yourself here away from the field and hope that game does, like I said, and kind of blows out, and it's a very mediocre pace offensively. And then meanwhile, you got this game with the Rams fighting to stay alive in the playoffs and the 49ers obviously trying to lock up all their home field stuff and even get a bye the first week or what have you. And then the 49ers defense is not the same defense like Derek alluded to. This is not the number 1 defense in the NFL right now because of the injuries. They can be taken advantage of. The Rams can do it. And on the flip side, the 49ers offense is good enough. So, yeah, I have no problems playing, anybody in this game on a 3-game slate. I would favor the running game for the 49ers and then favor Woods and Higbee for the Rams. But I think you could play anybody from either one of these 2 offenses and get away from that Houston-Tampa Bay game a little bit and be different from everybody else.
All right, Chop, we got Niners minus 6.5 at home here. Total sitting at 46.
6.5 at home. That means Jared Goff is on the road. Man, that's a tough one. Boy, that's a tough one. Whew, I really would love to take the dog, but I can't take Goff on the road, so I'm just going to take the over.
Say, you were on a roll there. The simple math. 6.5, Goff on the road. Give me the Niners. That's the way I'm going here. I don't know if the Rams can score enough points to go over. So maybe the Niners get into the 30s and make it happen, but I think the Niners win this one. The Rams reeling on the road. I don't see them being competitive enough to keep this within a touchdown. Derek, what do you got?
For me, it all depends on the injuries to the Niners defense. D Ford also questionable. So if 2 of those 4 are out or more, then I'll take the over.
All right, let's move on to Sunday and talk about the main slate. We've got 11 games to cover, 7 early, 4 in the afternoon. So a nice split of games here if you're playing multiple slates, or you are a red zone guy like myself, like to have those multiple games at 4 o'clock. So let's dig into the early games. Derek, we'll start with your Jaguars going to Atlanta. A big win for Jacksonville, going out and basically closing down the Oakland Coliseum there. So the fans not happy, but great performance down the stretch there, especially from Chris Conley. A couple touchdowns, only 4,300 this week against Atlanta. And for the Falcons, went on the road, got that big win like we talked about. But Julio's up to 8K. Freeman in a good matchup here. So, Chop, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to the Jags fan here. How do we want to attack this game, specifically the Atlanta side of things?
Oh, man, tough one. But it looks like Atlanta's still fighting a little bit. So I guess you could fire up their key components, Ryan, Freeman, and Julio. I actually think probably Austin Hooper gets back into the mix this week as a tight end one. So I got him in my player pool too. And I don't really favor any of these guys very much. I think they're all equally have a chance to have a good game. So don't have a lean on that, but I do like their number ones. And Jacksonville still, I mean, they suck. I get it. Their defense is definitely quitting on this team. But and I always fight with myself on teams that have given up. There's still the individual components of that team that are still trying to make the NFL and still fighting for jobs and stuff. So some of these guys are still fully in play. Like a Gardner Minshew, I mean, it's not like he's going out there rolling down his helmet saying, I quit. He's still fighting. Leonard Fournette, I could see, he looks like he's taking a little break now.
He's quit, for sure.
Yeah, he's looking like he's taking a little break.
Shut it down, for sure.
For sure. But then, you have some of these receivers and, they're still fighting for jobs and stuff. So I don't, it's not like they're not giving 100% effort. So I could still see taking a little Gardner Minshew, and I don't know if DJ Shark's going to be back this week or not. We'll see. But Chris Conley looked good in his absence. Dede Westbrook, I still think, has a chance to do well in his absence, and Keelan Cole, if Shark is out, is fine by me too. But yeah, Fournette probably off my list now.
Yeah, I've burned enough money on Fournette, so a little sour on him over the last couple weeks. But Shark supposed to be back on the field doing practice, so we'll see what practicing. We'll say. So if he's able to return, I think he's intriguing. If not, I think Conley remains a little bit too cheap, Derek. So. Jags, what are we doing there? And then the Falcons, Julio, Freeman, any preference in the passing game or the running game here? Because we know the running game is where Jacksonville's really giving it up here over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so first off, if we can get the producer to replay the tape from last week, you guys were just making fun of me for Jags money line, and they come out and beat the Raiders.
So like they say, when you pick the same thing every week, eventually it's going to hit. So we'll give you credit. It was a good pick, but
I mean, my confidence level. My confidence was like 10% on that pick.
Hey,
so
you made it happen. We
anyway,
hit the window, as we say.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like Chark is going to be able to play. He was doing some cutting drills, and he's cleared for practice on Monday. So I kind of expect him back out there. If that's the case, I'll fire him up in tournaments. Probably won't be looking to Westbrook or Conley, even though this is a pretty beatable secondary. If Chark's out, then you can obviously play both of them. Fournette, like you guys mentioned, he just doesn't look like he's too interested. It's a good matchup, and he is playing nearly every snap, but I just don't think I can go there. Maybe he'll get a bunch of checkdowns and get there, but that's not really how I want to target my running backs, especially that are priced up right now. Minshew's fine. He should have all his weapons back, so I think he's an okay value play. But all my interest in this game is for the Falcons side. They have an implied total of 26.5, and we know where their production is going to come from. Freeman's playing 80% of the snaps right now. Jaguars 31st in DVOA against the run, so I love him at home. And then in the passing game with no Ridley, you have Julio Jones and Austin Hooper soaking up all of the targets against a very beatable secondary. So love the spot for Ryan, love Freeman, love Julio, and love Austin Hooper. I think you can build a nice little team stack here.
It's a lot of Falcons love. Are you going back to the Jags money line here, Derek? So the spread's at 7.45.5 on the total.
No, they'll lose by 2 touchdowns in this one.
I am taking Atlanta as well here with the 7. I actually like the Atlanta defense as an additional play, especially a pairing with Devontae Freeman always makes a lot of sense. So give me the Falcons here covering the touchdown. Chop, what do you got?
Yeah, let's go with no, let's take the over. Let's take the over. I want to pull the trigger on Atlanta, but let's take the over just in case.
A young man over for Chop. All right, turning a new leaf here as we get to Week 16. You haven't taken many overs this season, so wish we could update the spreadsheet. If my man is out there listening, I'm begging you, give us an update. Again, I'd love to update it, but time is at a premium right now as we get towards the holidays. So if you're listening, Mr. Eric, look us up. Get that spreadsheet up to date. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, next game for us, Baltimore and Cleveland. The Lamar Jackson show continues. Another great week. Pretty much sewed up the MVP. Problem now here, Derek, the price is up to $8,000 on Lamar Jackson, but big favorites here in Cleveland as far as the Browns. I mean, dumpster fire. Everybody wants out of town. Now it's where Landry doesn't want to be back. We know Beckham's unhappy. Mayfield looked pretty bad last week outside of garbage time. What are we doing with this game? Because this one could get ugly.
Yeah, so when I first did my, look at the slate, I thought, Lamar Jackson guaranteed to get 25 points, lock him into my cash game lineups. But the quarterback position, you want more than just 3X. It's not that Lamar can't get 30, but there are a lot of good value plays, and there's a lot of position players that I want to spend up on. So don't see Lamar as a must, and it's worth noting if the Patriots lose on Saturday, then the Ravens will have the number 1 seed locked up, so they won't have a ton of reason to, roll him out there for 4 quarters. So just keep an eye on that throughout the week. I think he's certainly fine. I think he's going to have plenty of success here, if the Ravens still have something to play for, but not a must play for me. Don't want any part of the running game in Ingram and Edwards. Don't really want to play, Brown and Andrews outside of large field tournaments where you're pairing them up with Lamar. Then for the Browns, it's just a mess right now. You had Jarvis Landry screaming to the Cardinals that he wants to come and join their team. This team is just a mess right now. I'd like to play Chubb here. The way to beat the Ravens is on the ground, but he's been out-snapped by Hunt in 2 of the last 3 weeks. I still think he can get 20 touches, but I just don't trust this offense as a whole. Don't really want to play Beckham and Landry against this good secondary. They have Humphrey, they have Jimmy Smith, they have Marcus Peters. So for me, it's all Ravens, and don't mind taking a look at their defense as a very contrarian play at 4K on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. You'd think a 48-point total, you'd have more interest in the game, but I have worries about Lamar, just like you spelled out there. Is he going to play enough? And he doesn't need 4 quarters to get there. So the additional salary, $8K on Lamar, is a tough price to pay. The other side, Chubb was good against this team earlier in the season, but it's a much different and much better defense than what they saw earlier in the season. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Plus the Hunt concerns, like you mentioned. This one, I'm not finding a lot. I can always play Lamar and pair him with Andrews or Brown, but the Browns really tough to get too excited about. Chop, do the Browns put any effort here? Do they fight at all here? Is this just a Baltimore smash spot once again?
I think it's over with for the Browns, especially. I think it's over with for the Browns that we know this year. I think this is definitely a core that will not be intact next year, and they've mailed this season in, so I don't have any interest in those guys. And my first thought was the exact opposite of what Derek said. My first thought was, should I lock in Lamar? Let's just lock him in, because they're not going to pull the reins on Lamar this week. If they ever pull the reins on him, it would be in week 17. They're not going to do it this week, and he is their entire offense basically. So if we can avoid too many Mark Ingram touchdowns, Lamar will have a field day, even at 8K. But we've seen him be a GPP winner at this price tag. Maybe he hasn't been this price tag, but he's put up numbers where even at this price tag this year, he would have won you GPPs, and you almost had to have him. So, there's a legit thought in my mind. Let's just lock him in, and then I don't have to worry about Fitzpatrick or Dalton or any of the cheap quarterbacks, torpedoing my team.
How fun is that?
I know.
Those guys.
You guys like to gamble. Y'all gamble a little bit, man. But, he's like the safest lock for X amount of points. It's just sick, man. So that was my thought, is let's just lock him in. But, as the week goes on, I do love me some cheap quarterbacks, not necessarily this week, but in general. So I probably won't do that. I'll probably bail out on that, but I do like that. I do like that thought process, though. And I just think they steamroll Cleveland, and I think you could use Lamar, Ingram, Marquise, and Mark Andrews. I think they're all fine. And if you really want to get cute with it, you can use like a Hayden Hurst and hope you get a one-off 50-yard touchdown, which I think is very possible this game. So I like Baltimore. I don't like Cleveland.
Yeah, Lamar's never a guy I'm going to X out of my player pool. That I know, even with the concerns, even with, if he does play 3 quarters, he could have 5-6 touchdowns here. So I am going to go with Baltimore. I agree with everything you guys said. I have zero interest in Cleveland. I just can't do it. Does maybe somebody go off here? Potentially, but that is dysfunction at its finest. So I think Baltimore rolls here pretty easily. So I'll go Baltimore minus the 10 here. Chop, it's minus 10, 48 on the total.
Yeah, steamroll here, man. Baltimore.
All right, Derek.
I'll be like Vegas Dave and say Baltimore money line.
There you go.
Oh, I saw that. That's got to be one of the biggest cop out. I can't believe a guy would get paid to.
How do I do it?
How does he
How do
it?
do it?
How does he do it? That's crazy, man.
Did you guys catch the nip slip in one of those videos, though? It's somewhat interesting.
Oh, I did not.
Oh, they were celebrating. I don't know if it was that win. It was another similar, like, wow, you picked a huge money line favorite. They're sitting there eating crab, and in some looks like a casino restaurant, and pans over to his girlfriend, and there it is, just hanging out, winking at you, saying hi. So
she's sure taking a turn for the worse.
Yeah, for sure. She's what's her name?
Saunders something. She used to be like on the U.S. Open coverage, and
now she's with.
Is that same girl?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's a smoke show, but what she's doing with that clown, I don't know, man. How do I do it?
How does he do it?
Interesting. All right, next game here we have Carolina going to Indianapolis. Two teams pretty much out of it. Indianapolis got steamrolled last night by the Saints. Carolina put up a fight against Seattle, but came up short. So we know Carolina, it's McCaffrey, 10-1 this week. It's a lot of DJ Moore. Saw some life from Curtis Samuel last week, but the big news, the move to Will Grier here, 4,300 Chop. Can we play Will Grier at that price? I know we just talked Lamar Jackson, so we're on the opposite spectrum of quarterbacks here, but was pretty good at West Virginia, finally getting a shot here, but 4,300, interesting price tag.
Well, I mean, he seemed like he would have some pretty good NFL skills at West Virginia, but then you got to wonder how he got buried on the depth chart behind Kyle Allen, who's not particularly good. So there's definitely room to be leery right there. And it's only a slightly less than a 20-point team total. So, I mean, he'll be in my player pool, but I temper my expectations on that. McCaffrey's a stud. DJ Moore looks great. The rest of these guys I have a hard time playing. Curtis Samuel just doesn't quite do it for me. And then the tight ends, I haven't been a Greg Olsen guy for the last 2 or 3 years. He just kind of lumbers around out there, but he's had a good first half of the year before he got hurt, but I'm not going to go back to that. But on the positive note, Indianapolis did absolutely get rolled up Monday night against New Orleans. So maybe they're kind of like, teetering out already and they're done. So there's a possibility here. On the flip side, yeah, I don't know, man. I've played Marlon Mack quite a bit. I even played him on Monday night against the Saints, thinking it was going to be his time. And so now here you actually have the matchup for him. But will they end up executing that? I don't know. For some reason, he just hasn't gotten rolling. I mean, he's got a great offensive line by the numbers, and he just hasn't got unleashed this year. So I don't know what to do with that. But at least we're on turf, Indianapolis, and T.Y. is back and had a week where he actually was active. So maybe another week goes by and maybe he's even healthier and feels even better, and maybe this is his week. So I'm definitely not opposed to a T.Y. Hilton one-off here, but Jacoby Brissett's not a guy I would play in a stack, so it would just be a one-off.
Derek, tell me this is the Marlon Mack game. I mean, how many times can we play this guy and it doesn't happen? Now you're at home, big favorite, against easily the worst run. They're worse than Jacksonville, and it's not even close when you're looking at fantasy points. They're allowing almost 3 more fantasy points per game at this point than Jacksonville is on the ground. So please tell me I can play Marlon Mack here this week, and tell me that he's going to do well, not just go out there and give me 10 for 46.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wilkins mixing in. I believe the Colts have now been eliminated from the playoffs. Even if they win their next 2 games, they're only 8-8 on the season. So I just don't know. It is the worst run defense in the NFL. It is a great spot. They are big home favorites, but he's been in the same spot like 4 or 5 times this season. I've played him all 4 of those 5 times, and he's hasn't done anything. So this is the week I'll probably fade him. So listeners, just like last week where you played Terrell Williams and he scored that touchdown, you do that again this week with Mac because I will not be playing him.
Oh, there you go.
Everyone else, I don't know. I mean, they should put up points against the Panthers. I just don't know who I want to trust here. Jack Doyle is probably my favorite option in the passing game, but Hilton at home is always viable for a big game. And then Carolina, it's hard for me not to like Grier at 4,300. I mean, if he gives you 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, he's 4X at least on DraftKings. We know the Colts, they like to keep everything in front of them, and the Panthers are going to look for a lot of easy completions for Greer. So I think it's going to be a good spot for him. I don't mind pairing up with McCaffrey. I think he's going to get 10 targets from Greer once again, like he has been with Kyle Allen. Don't really trust Moore or Samuel. I just want to see how they play with Greer under center. But I do have a little bit of interest in Olsen just because, like I mentioned, the Colts give up a lot of those easy, short completions. So I like the Panther side more than the Colts, which is interesting since they are 7-point dogs.
Yeah, let's go look at the line. It's down to 6.5 here on Sharp Side, which, again, you should download the app, get access to all these spreads, totals we talk about, player props, all different sports on here. So make sure you guys are downloading the Sharp Side app. But, Derek, we got minus 6.5 as of now. 46 on the total.
I don't like this spread. I don't like this total. I guess I'll lean toward the under just because I don't have much to say.
I thought we were going to get the old I'll abstain from a pick here, and I wasn't going to allow it. So,
yeah, I can't do that anymore.
I don't really like this game either. I don't like the spread. I don't like the total. So I am going to abstain. I'm just kidding. Damn, this one's tough. I'll go Carolina with the points. How about that? Chop, what do you got?
Give me that under in this game.
Old man under. And Chop, I know you love to be our breaking news guy, but I'm gonna pop in here with a little coaching news just across my desk, and some Detroit Lions news with their coach and their general manager. You're a Lions fan, and it seems like the Lions fans were not happy with the team. A lot of signs and bags on the head got into their stadium, but they will be bringing back Matt Patricia and GM Bob Quinn for the 2020 season. So shocking to some, interesting, I guess, to the Lions fans out there, but looks like another year of incompetence for the Lions. We'll get to them here, game in Denver later on, but let's move on to our next game. Speaking of incompetence, Cincinnati and Miami, we've circled this game on our matchup chart for Week 16. Pretty much everything in play here, Derek. Both teams' defenses are bad. Chop kind of disparaged the great name of Ryan Fitzpatrick earlier. Another revenge narrative game for him here. We saw Parker come back and get it done. And in the Cincinnati side of things, Joe Mixon continues to get it done. I love the spot here for Mixon against Miami this week.
Yeah, it's hard not to like this game as a whole. Two of the worst defenses, actually two of the three worst defenses in the NFL. Both of them can't stop the pass or the run. So for Cincinnati, I agree with you. Joe Mixon's going to be a guy that I have a ton of. He's at least 17 fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's getting most of the work. Great matchup. And he's pretty involved in the passing game as well. So love the spot for Mixon. I feel like this is a spot for Ross to beat the secondary deep, but he did only play on 38% of the snaps last week, so that does worry me a little bit. Still like him in large field tournaments. It only takes a play or two for him to pay off that salary. Boyd's fine. Erickson as a cheap flyer is fine. Pretty much anyone that is going to see snaps is viable against the Dolphins. And then for Miami, can't trust the running backs. Laird, we thought he was going to be a workhorse moving forward, but didn't get that 4th and 1, and then they kind of went to Gaskin to see what he brought to the table. For now, I'd just probably avoid him. Still like Fitzpatrick and his receivers, Devontae Parker, with another big game last week. And Albert Wilson, 80% of the snaps last week, saw 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 59 yards. He's only 3,800. One of my favorite value plays of the week.
All right, Chop, what do you got here? I think there's a lot of viable options. You can stack this game, a lot of cheap pieces, but Bengals-Dolphins should be a fantasy bonanza here this week.
Yeah, a bonanza. The Cincinnati side looks kind of interesting. Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd and even Andy Dalton. So I think that's all fine. And on the flip side, there's really only $6K for Ryan Fitzpatrick here that's getting up there, man. I think that kind of takes the luster off of that play right there when you get up in that price range for him. But I do like Devontae. He's the guy he targets, and it's a good matchup for him, or it's a fair matchup. I do think Cincinnati's defense played a lot better lately, so I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I can still play Devontae Parker, and I'll keep Mike Gesicki in my player pool just because tight end is, it hasn't been what it was the last couple years. It's been a little bit rough this year, so I keep all the cheap options in my pool.
What about Patrick Laird?
I knew
him in your pool.
Yeah.
Did you see the pictures? I mean, the boys went out and had to visit old Patrick Laird. So
I mean, the picture you have to see is the one where they photoshopped Siege's legs onto Davis. Now, that was the best picture out there. But I mean, this guy's just. I mean, I guess on DraftKings you keep him in the mix, but I don't have a whole lot of interest in him at 4,600.
Worst shoes, Davis's or Siege's? That's some serious stuff right there.
I mean, at least Siege wasn't trying to impress him. He was just out like at a park doing whatever he was doing.
Disney World and
he's just chilling, man. Davis Maddock knew he was going to meet somebody here today. He knew he was going to be taking a lot of pictures. I know you gotta wear some better shoes than that, man.
You're going to meet your Laird and Savior. You gotta at least put some Jesus sandals on or something, man. Myles Gaskin also concerned. Saw him get some work and actually look pretty good there. 9 carries for 43 yards. So Miami clearly in evaluation mode. Just something to keep in mind if you are going with Patrick Laird. All right, let's take a look at the line. Maybe somehow, hold on, got locked out. Riveting radio podcasting here. We have Miami -1, 46.5 on the total, Chop.
Yeah, Cincinnati's not going to take any chances here. They're definitely losing this game. Miami's going to win this thing.
I agree. They are in Joe Burrow mode, so I'll take Miami -1. Derek, what do you got?
I'm on the opposite side here. If the Dolphins win, they will drop from potentially the 2nd pick to the 5th pick in the draft, while the Bengals, they can win and still get the 1st pick. They, 2 fewer wins than any other team in football. So I will take the Bengals.
I'm gonna poke some holes in that strategy there. And when you have Fitzmagic, who just does not give an F about any of that, he's gonna go out there and win this game just because. So just something to keep in mind with Ryan.
We should probably just take the over. We like all.
There you go. The over is definitely in play. There you go. That's the easy way. Bengals, Dolphins defense is both terrible. Over sounds like the play. So, all right. Speaking of points on the offensive end, I don't know, we'll get a lot of those here in this game. Pittsburgh and the Jets, kind of an ugly game. Devlin Hodges came back down to earth. We'll see if Juju returns. Connor was back last week, looked okay in spots. The Jets just continue to do worse. But you do get Le'Veon Bell against his former team, Derek. Does that interest you at all here against Pittsburgh?
Revenge. I know we play these narratives up, and there's not a whole lot he can do in terms of creating holes for the running game or anything like that. But he's 5,800. He's going to play a bunch of snaps. He's probably going to get some dump offs from Darnold, coming off of a season high 87 rushing yards. I have some interest, depending on his ownership. If he's going to be really chalky because of the narrative, then I think he's a nice fade. But if not, I'll have some interest, and he's really the only guy that I would look to here. Pittsburgh, one of the best defensive teams in the NFL. And for the Steelers side, not a lot to love here either. Hodges hasn't scored more than 13 fantasy points all season. James Conner is back, but he's still in a time split with Samuels and Snell, so worry about that. If Juju ends up being out, I'll probably take a tournament share or two on James Washington. We know the Jets' secondary is very beatable. He's seen over half the air yards over the last 3 weeks with Hodges under center, so little duck hunting narrative there with Hodges, but overall not really an interesting game.
Yeah, I'm usually a narrative guy. I'd rather play the duck hunting narrative with Washington than play Le'Veon Bell here against Pittsburgh. I mean, it's not a good spot against a very good defense. Price is intriguing, but I'm hoping people load up here. I am not going to be playing any Le'Veon Bell. Chop, where do you come out on these narratives here? Bell against his former team and the old duck to Washington duck hunting buddies.
Yeah, you have to just, as a full-fledged member, almost damn near on the presiding counselor of Narrative Street, I say you just have to know how to recognize a good narrative from a bad narrative. Drew Brees on Monday night needing only a couple touchdowns and, yards to become this big, bad man in the history books. Last home game of the year in New Orleans for New Orleans in the regular season. That was a great narrative to attack. This one right here, Le'Veon Bell, who hasn't rushed for like 40 yards all year long. I know he had like 80 last week or something, but like he's been terrible all year long against a really good defense. No, I'll pass on this particular narrative right here. I know in his heart he wants to destroy Pittsburgh this week, but he just can't. There's nothing he can do about it. That's unfortunate. So this Pittsburgh defense is top 3 maybe? I think at worst you'd have to say top 3 this year in the NFL. It's been a big surprise. I was actually just thinking the other night, it's a damn shame Big Ben got hurt because this is a really good defense, one of the best offensive lines in football. You know, if Big Ben wouldn't have got hurt, this would be a serious playoff contender and a team that there's not like a standout AFC team this year. New England's very much down to earth. The Chiefs are down to earth. And Baltimore's good, but I think they can be beat. So it's a shame that Big Ben got hurt because this team could they would have been able to make some noise. But now we're stuck with Duck Hodges and a bad group of players around him. I don't think this is one of those games I mark off my list almost.
Yeah, I mean,
it just doesn't do it for me.
Pretty much with you there again. Washington intriguing if Juju's out. Jets side, I don't have any interest. So. And it is a shame. You think about all the injuries this team has fought through, Ben going down, Connor being in and out of the lineup, Juju being out. You give them those 3 guys with this defense, and they are definitely a serious contender. So, but as of this week, pretty ugly here. The numbers agree, 38.5 on that total chop. Pittsburgh -3 here on the road.
Oh, man. Pittsburgh -3. I'm going to say give me the under in this game.
I am going old man under here as well. It just feels like an ugly game with not a lot of points. So we don't like any of the fantasy plays. There's a reason why. I'm going to go under here as well. Derek, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll take the under as well. And speaking of Big Ben, he's now the doppelganger for Matt Patricia. Did you guys see that the other night?
Yes. Apparently he's not going to shave until he can throw a football. It's just the word on the street. So
looks just like him.
He does. He's looking rough, but something's working for Patricia there back with the Lions. So maybe Big Ben figuring it out here. So, all right, next game we have New Orleans in Tennessee. Drew Brees and his record-breaking touchdowns takes the road to Tennessee here. 50.5-point total here, Chop. So an intriguing game. Tennessee, tough loss at home last week. Do they get on track here? Derrick Henry's price down to 7,700. Matchup not as tough as it was before some of the injuries there to the front of New Orleans. So is he a guy we want to go back to? And then Michael Thomas, how do we not play this guy at this point? Just continues to tear it up each and every week.
The reason why I wouldn't play, and I'm not saying I'm not going to play Michael Thomas, but the one big thing that he has against him is he's on the road, man. This guy's really good at home, and he's still decent enough on the road, but he's just on a different level at home. So that's the one thing that you would hold against him. Otherwise, he's going to be a good play. And man, thank God they got him because otherwise they'd be in trouble this year. Alvin Kamara hasn't looked the same since he hurt himself, and now you're going on the road facing Tennessee. I think Tennessee's still scrapping and clawing for that playoff spot. They're going to be a tough team. So I think it's going to be a good game, but outside of Michael Thomas, I don't have a whole lot of interest in New Orleans. I mean, Kamara just doesn't look healthy right now. For Tennessee, I do like Derrick Henry and I do like A.J. Brown. That's pretty much where I draw the line right there.
All right, Derek, what do you got on this game, Saints-Titans?
Yeah, agree with Chop. On the Saints side, it's just Michael Thomas for me. Incredibly expensive, but, I mean, he gives you 8 and 100 as like a minimum, which is 21 on DraftKings points. And then anything on top of that, is just gravy. So love MT once again. Kamara just hasn't looked that explosive, and he's still priced up. Breeze is fine, but on the road, I'm worried about his upside a little bit. And then, for the Titans, I've already heard the narrative that, they won't be able to win their division if Houston wins on Saturday, but they can still make the playoffs as a wild card team. So they'll be doing everything they can to win this game. Henry, Brown, like Chop mentioned, both excellent plays. They are priced up, but that will help keep ownership down. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of those two.
Yeah, I really like going back to Henry here, and Brown's been great, no doubt. So those are definitely the two Titans you want. Tannehill's been playing some good ball, so it makes for a nice pairing with A.J. Brown, the Saints. I like Thomas, but having a hard time getting excited about anybody outside of that. All right, we got Saints -3. Big total here, 50.5, Derek.
I'll take the Titans just because they pretty much have to win. It's a bad narrative to play, but I'll take the Titans.
I am going to go under. This number feels pretty high here, especially to a team like Tennessee that wants to run the ball, kind of take the air out, keep that Saints offense on the sidelines. I think we could see some long drives here for Tennessee. So give me the under on that 50.5. Chop, what do you got?
Give me Tennessee plus those points at home. I think New Orleans has a little bit of little road woes here, and Tennessee wins this game.
All right, last early game here on the main slate, Giants and Redskins, two terrible teams playing somewhat better, at least putting some offense on the board here, and we could get some offense in this one, Chop. So finally got Barkley going again. Peterson actually looked pretty good. On the other side, McLaurin, a big day once again last week. So I think there's some nice pieces here in this game with Giants and Redskins.
It's the McLaren is interesting. He finally did something with Haskins at quarterback. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. So I think he definitely remains a guy we can play. Adrian Peterson, he actually looks spry, man. Believe it for his age. He's I want to keep marking him off the list, but on a site like FanDuel where you're not worried about receptions, you're just worried about touchdowns and all, he's definitely remains in play. So McLaren and AP on one side. On the other side, Saquon looked good last week. It was against Miami. So you take that with a grain of salt, but Washington's not that much better. So Saquon remains in play. And I have a hard time trying to figure out which guy is going to get it at receiver. Everybody was on Darius Slayton last week. I didn't necessarily like him. With Shepard there and Golden Tate there and maybe even Evan Ingram eventually coming back, I think it's so spread out. I don't even think I need to take a chance right there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. If anything, I'll go Barkley. I mean, think back to last week, and Miles Sanders put a huge game on the board against his team. So rather than decipher which receiver or Evan Ingram or go a little Eli, I think Barkley the play. And then McLaurin for me on the other side. With Peterson, like you said, it's a great point on FanDuel. You're more worried about touchdowns. And he's looked good. I hate to say it. I thought we buried this guy, but he's been solid here. No Darius Geis going to meet another full workload here. Derek, Giants, Redskins, ugly teams, but some fantasy plays here, definitely.
Yeah, same three for me. Like you guys mentioned, Barkley on the Giants side looked good last week. Yes, it was against the Dolphins, but I think he kind of parlays that into a strong finish to the season. No interest in the pass catchers. I just don't really know which direction Jones is going to go. Sounds like he'll be back out there. So as far as the Redskins, I mean, I'm sure this happens to you guys a lot, happens to our listeners a lot, but I had a dream McLaurin was going to catch a long touchdown. And then sure enough, the first quarter last week, he catches that long touchdown. Obviously didn't play him because those dreams lead me astray more often than not, but it's just funny. We love DFS so much, you start dreaming about it. But I think he's fine. Caught all 5 of his targets last week for 130 yards and a touchdown. Very beatable secondary. They also let go of Janoris Jenkins for his insensitive remarks. And then AP should see 20 touches. Don't mind him at that cheap price point.
All right, we have Redskins favored at home here, -2.5. I never thought I'd say that this season, but here we are, 42.5 on the total, Derek.
Both defenses are so bad that I have a hard time not taking the over.
I am with you on the over here. I think there'll be points, so a ton of points there with Philly and Washington, and Philly not exactly an offense that's been piling on points. So I'll go over. Chop, what do you got?
Saquon looked just good enough for me last week to believe the Giants can go in there and win this game, so I'll take the Giants.
All right, let's go to the 4 o'clock window here. We'll start with those Lions we spoke about earlier with Patricia and Bob Quinn coming back for another season. Now they go out to Denver here. 2 disappointing teams. This one shouldn't take much time. I have no interest in the Detroit side of things with Galladay going up against Chris Harris Jr., and led by David Blau. Some dude named Wes Ills scored 2 touchdowns. I had to look him up, apparently from Slippery Rock. So in case you were wondering, Denver side of things, I continue to try to make Philip Lindsay work. So it's the same question here, Derek. Can I play Philip Lindsay, kind of the Marlon Mack question, in a good spot here at home against Detroit?
Oh, man. Yeah, Lindsey just hasn't been getting the job done, getting outsnapped by Freeman. So I don't know if I want to mess with this running game. It's a pretty good matchup for sure. But on the Denver side, I'll side with Sutton and Noah Fant. don't hate Locke as a kind of a cheap tournament play. You know, we can forgive him for one bad outing against the Chiefs in the snow last week, but always got to check the weather in Denver this time of year. And then for the Lions, yeah, I'm with you. Kerryon Johnson could return this week, but even if he's out, I don't want any part, or even if he's in, I don't want any part of the running backs here. Galladay, like you mentioned, probably going to be matched up against Chris Harris. So maybe you take a shot on Danny Amendola again. He's still only 4,900. Did see 13 targets and got the 100-yard bonus last week.
All right, Chop. Should be short and sweet here. What do you got, Lions and Broncos?
I'm not a fan of anybody in this game outside of the two number one wide receivers, Galladay and Sutton. That's it.
All right, spread-wise, we got Denver home favorites here, -7, 38.5 on the total, Chop.
Whew. That's a good one, man. I would say, yeah, Denver at home. Give me Denver at home.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to go Denver -7. They've been competitive in some tough environments. Detroit just looks horrendous, even if Kerryon comes back. What do you really get out of him? I see Denver kind of winning this one pretty easily. Derek, what do you got?
Make it 3 for 3. Give me Denver.
All right, next game, Oakland going to L.A. to take on the Chargers. Two teams coming off losses here. Two teams not exactly playing well here. Derek, what do we do with this one?
I don't know. Oakland just lost their final game in Oakland, so I think they kind of fall apart in their last two games. I like the Chargers to roll in this one, and because of that, I don't really love anyone from the Raiders side outside of Darren Waller. He continues to play well. That's pretty much it for me on that side. For Chargers, got to like Phillip Rivers. He has so many weapons. He's only 5,700. We know the Oakland, one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, 31st in DVOA right now. So I like Rivers, and I think I'll pair him up with Mike Williams. He's scored in back-to-back games. He's looked really good. He's had half the air yards over the last 3 weeks. And then Hunter Henry, 4,700. I know he's been struggling. I know he hasn't been getting the targets, but that's certainly an interesting price point. Probably won't be messing with the running backs because Justin Jackson is starting to get work. He's played on 21% of the snaps each of the last 2 games, and so that really only leaves 40% each for Gordon and Eckler, and I don't really want to mess with that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make Eckler work. Just looking back, Gordon with the fumbles, but then he was back in the game. You mentioned Jackson getting some work. So, I mean, I would love to attack here, but love the Mike Williams call. Continues to get targets, and Rivers sometimes just throws it up to him. So, at 5K, I don't hate that. Even Keenan Allen down to 6,300 on DraftKings. So, Oakland don't have a lot of interest in that side of the ball, but I like these Chargers wide receivers here. Chop, what do you got? Raiders and Chargers.
The Raiders are a hard pass for me. I think that's it for them after last week. And for the Chargers, Phillip Rivers will keep them like the juices flowing a little bit or whatever. So give me Keenan and Mike Williams.
All right, let's take a look at the Vegas line here. We have the Chargers -6.5, 45.5 on the total, Chop.
Give me the Chargers minus the points.
Derek, what do you got?
Yeah, hammer the Chargers. Take your adjusted lines as well. I think they win by like 3 touchdowns.
All right, I'm going Chargers here as well. I just can't take Oakland at this point. I agree with you guys. I think they shut it down after that loss here, and the Chargers bounce back at home. All right, next game, Chop. We got your Cowboys in a massive game here. Obviously, NFC East on the line here, Dallas and Philadelphia. Big point spread movement here as well. It started as a pick, Dallas up to 2.5-point favorites here. So we're going to go to you first here, Chop. Cowboys looked great last week. Pretty much did whatever they wanted to do against the Rams. This Philadelphia secondary, very beatable. Is this the week we get a big game out of Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, the passing game? Philly can be tough against the run, so you got to think that's the way they attack. Prefer one of those, maybe both of those. Is Dak in play? And then Philly, what do we do there? I mean, it's tight ends. Greg Ward showed out last week. Sanders showed out last week. Maybe the game of the week here as far as watching football, daily-wise, how much interest do you have here in Cowboys-Eagles?
A whole bunch of interest in the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think that, yeah, this is going to be a really good offensive game, not just a good real-life game for what's at stake, but I think offensively, DFS-wise, this is going to be exceptional. Amari Cooper, there's a little bit of worry there because his home road splits, I think, are a real thing, and they're massive in the favor of him being at home. So I worry about that a little bit. And I know the Eagles are good against the run. The Eagles have been good against the run for a couple of years now. And Elliott absolutely owns this team for whatever reason it is. 100-plus yards, 4 straight games against them. You know, he gets touchdowns. I think if we're going by DraftKings points, he's scored over 20 points against them in 4 straight games. Like, they have a good read on whatever the system is for Philadelphia defensively. The Cowboys run well against them. So it could be an Elliott game. It could be a Michael Gallup game. It could be a Cooper game. I could be using those splits, and they could not even work this week. So I just think the Cowboys put up a lot of points here. And the Eagles on the flip side, I'm going to have to, we're going to have to see who's healthy at receiver, if Aguilar is back or not, and that could make a big difference. So we could get a whole lot of Greg Ward and Zach Ertz again. That would be good for us. I think the price tag crept up on Greg Ward a little bit, but if he is the number one wide receiver, then that'll be fine. Zach Ertz is fine. That's a big price tag, but he could be the number one guy too. So, and I don't think they have a lot of success running the ball. So Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders. If Jordan Howard is back, I don't need to touch the backfield. If Jordan Howard is out, then I think we can go back to a Miles Sanders or even a Boston Scott. But there's going to be some offense in this game. This is a game I'm going to target.
All right, Derek, what do you got? Interesting game. I agree with him. I think there's a lot of ways you can go. That Zeke play, I don't think a lot of people will go there, but almost 30 DraftKings points in the last matchup earlier in the year. So intriguing to say the least here, but Dallas-Philly, what do you think here, Derek?
Yeah, I agree with everything Chop said. We might be oversimplifying things, but I don't play Dak or Cooper on the road, and Zeke has been crushing. It looked good last week against the Rams. I think he's going to get a ton of opportunities here, probably 25-plus touches. So give me Zeke, and then for the Eagles, it just depends on Aguilar and Howard. Miles Sanders looks really good, looks explosive, ton of speed. So if he gets the start, I probably won't play him, but maybe sprinkle him into tournaments, and then Ward and Ertz if Aguilar ends up being out.
All right, Derek, 2.5-point favorites here for the Cowboys. Total sitting at 46.5.
Cowboys finally got a win against a team with a winning record. I think they make it 2 in a row. Assuming the Eagles have a winning record, I don't even know.
Yes, aren't both these teams 8? No,
7-7.
7-7. That's
well,
Cowboy-esque.
I'll still take the Cowboys.
I'm taking the Cowboys here too. I just think they're the better team. Even if Aguilar comes back, Philly's really lacking in pass catching options outside of Ertz. So Ward was a good story. I just think Dallas is the better team. So give me the Cowboys. Shot. How do you do? I know you're going Cowboys money line here, and then asking how do you do it?
Oh man!
And then put a Twitter post out there. You can eat lobster.
Give me all the Cowboys. The Cowboys win this game. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is just like. And speaking of that, I had because curiosity gets the best of a man. You got to scroll through and find what you're talking about. I find the video, and the best comment under it is, "Her nipple is out, dude. How does she do it?" Always good stuff. Always good.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go search Vegas Dave and enjoy that. So, all right, last game we have Arizona and Seattle here. Seattle trying to lock up one of the top 2 seeds. In the NFC, so still a big game for them. Big home favorites here. Chop, Arizona, a big win last week against a awful Cleveland team like we talked about, but tough spot here on the road for Kyler and company.
I don't think it's as tough as maybe this spread indicates. I think they could find some success here in Seattle. I just don't think of Seattle as a dominating defense. So because of that, I know they're not giving up on this season, Arizona. They're still scoring points. I think Kyler Murray could have a good game. I think Christian Kirk could have a good game, and Kenyon Drake is clearly the number 1 running back there. So I'll keep him in the mix because he even gets some passing game work when need be. So I think those guys are still squarely in the mix for me, along with Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and Chris Carson, and a little bit of DK Metcalf.
All right, Derek, wrap us up here. Cardinals and Seahawks.
Yeah, I love the spot for the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray couldn't have ran worse than he did last week. Kenyon Drake scored 4 touchdowns. A bunch of them were, receptions that ended up getting down at the 1-yard line. So I love Kyler Murray. Like his rushing upside. I think they're going to be passing all games since they are big underdogs, and like pairing them up with Christian Kirk. For the Seahawks, I'll go right back to Chris Carson. I know it's expensive. I know it doesn't feel good, but huge favorites at home. Played on 76% of the snaps, 25 touches last week. We know the Seahawks want to run the ball. You can beat Arizona any way you please. So I like Carson quite a bit. Lockett finally had that breakout game that we've been waiting for. Should be able to avoid Patrick Peterson since he does line up in the slot.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Carson call, but I love Lockett this week. That's the matchup. I know it's tight ends and Hollister in play here as well against Arizona, but they've struggled against slot receivers. So I think Lockett, one of the better receiver plays on the week as well. All right, Seattle -10 here, Derek. 51 on the total.
I think the Cardinals keep this one competitive.
All right, I'm going to go over. I think we get a lot of points in this one. I do think the Cardinals will score some points. In Seattle, I think you can book for 28 to 35 points here. So give me the over. Chop, what do you got?
I think Arizona can keep this thing competitive, so I'm going to go Arizona.
All right, and that will wrap us up here for Week 16. We covered the Saturday slate in the beginning, the Sunday main slate, a little over an hour here. So I want to wrap this thing up. But, guys, any final thoughts here for the peeps before we get out of here? Chop.
Yeah, we are. What is this, week 16? Wow, we got 1 week left, man. I just need to know: are either one of you guys planning on going to check out Adam Sandler's new movie that's releasing this week, Uncut Gems?
I'm a big fan of that movie. I don't know that I'll get there. I have a weekend-long Christmas dance concert with the girls. 7 different shows going on all weekend. So that will be my life this weekend, unfortunately. But I definitely want to see that movie. Yes,
I'm thinking about sneaking into that one while the kids are watching the Star Wars thing on this weekend. So
there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
now you're talking the old split in the movie theater.
Yeah,
love it. Derek, final thoughts here. Week 16.
Definitely want to see the movie. My main man, Kevin Garnett, my favorite player of all time, is in it, so definitely going to be seeing it eventually. But I don't get to go to grown-up movies until they come out on Amazon or whatever. But final thoughts, I know a lot of NFL executives listen to this podcast, so let's get some more of these 3-game Saturday slates going. Get rid of the Thursday game. Give us some more afternoon games and go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I like these Saturday games. Nice slate of games here. So a bunch of different slates for you to play Saturday, main Sunday, late Sunday, or play the whole damn thing and combine Saturday and Sunday. But just be on the lookout for these teams with motivation. Some teams are in evaluation mode. Very important to look at this time of the year. So factor that in to your research. And that will do it, guys. As always, we appreciate you listening. If you would, go give us some feedback over on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this, 5 stars, we would appreciate commentary. But we love doing the show, guys, and glad you guys enjoy listening to it. For headChopper, for Notorious, I am Beer saying salut, best of luck here in Week 16. We will be back covering Week 17, always an interesting slate. So come on back for that. But good luck this week, guys. We're out of here.